Dude, this bike is insane. Like, this is absolutely mad. And let me redo it. On this YouTube channel, you've seen me ride a bunch of different bikes. I've been doing some trail riding, some downhill riding, and more recently, well, I've been on my e-bikes a lot more than usually. Why? Because they are extremely fun and they allow me to ride more. Right there, I've got the Propain Fresh SL. This is my lightweight e-bike. But right now, there is a new kid in town. It is the new Propain Ekano 3 with the very famous Avinox motor. Let's talk about it. The Propain Ekano 3 alloy came out about a couple months ago, and there has been a ton of hype on this bike, mostly because it's got the new Avinox M2 motor, so second generation. You probably read about this motor online, and it is actually quite insane. I think the hype is well justified. So much power, so much torque, and it is quite a different experience riding this bike versus the lightweight e-bike I have right there. So in this video, we're gonna be talking about the motor, how it feels when you actually pedal and sit on the bike, but also we're gonna look at the frame itself, what I've changed, and how I set up my bike in order to match my riding style, but also the trails I'll be shredding on. So let's jump into it. Just like any Propain bike, you can also customize this one. You can change the decals, the size, the color, the badge, you can upgrade the components, but since it's an e-bike, you can also build the motor specifically for you. So the Avinox M2 motor also has the M2S option, which is basically an upgrade, and it is what I have. Now if we look at the frame itself, there is two options, the Enduro or the Trail. Essentially, it's a longer stroke on the shock for the Enduro to get more travel, so we're gonna look in detail at that. Between the Ekano Trail and Enduro, you've got a choice of 4 colors. Propain sent me the dirty mustard option, probably because I'm French. Not what I would have picked up in the first place, but I have to say it looks really good, and typically Propain does a really good job with their paints. Now, something that's very attractive for this bike is that the starting price for the trail is only 5,600 US and 5,800 US for the enduro. Since you can upgrade the motor and build it as you want, there is a few options, so I'm gonna tell you about the different characteristics. The M2, which is the base model of this motor, comes with a max power of 1100 watts and 125 Newton meter of torque with a max assist of 800%. If you want the M2S like I have, which is the upgraded version, you'll get 1300 watts and a max torque of 150 Newton meters, which is absolutely insane. Other thing you can change and upgrade is the size of the battery, 600 watt hour or 800 watt hour. The big thing to notice is bigger battery means that the bike's gonna be heavier, and the difference is roughly 1 kilo. Myself, I have the big battery, the 800 watt per hour. There is a bunch of different options you can choose from for the screen and also for the charger. You got a fast charger and a regular charger. And you will notice that I don't have a remote on my handlebar to change the mode or have the walk mode, but it gets shipped with the bike. I just didn't install it myself. So in order to change the mode, I simply press on the button right there. But that means I don't have access to the walk mode, which is probably something I should do in the future. But there's so much power that you can pretty much pedal this bike anywhere where you can walk. With number like this, as you can expect it, this bike is absolutely insane to pedal uphill. My very first ride, and that was before I tuned the motor with the app, I was actually not even riding with full power and full torque. I did 9.7 kilometers of uphill, so basically from my house to the top of the mountain. That was 770 meters of elevation, and I did that in below 22 minutes. If I tune the motor and I use it in turbo with full power, full torque, I probably can get it below 20 minutes, which probably would be as quick as what I would do if I was to drive to the top of the mountain. It is absolutely incredible. I always give people a tip when they pedal their e-bike uphill is to ride with your finger on the brakes, just in case you put too much power and the front wheel wants to lift. So that way you can manage the torque and the power that goes to the rear wheel. Well, with the Avinox M2S motor, this is even more true. On the turbo mode, you really want your finger on the brakes to control it. Some people might say that it is too much power and it's gonna ruin the trail. I'm not gonna get into that debate now, that will be for a different video. But what I would say is that myself, I'm mostly gonna use this bike as a mini downhill bike, or basically a downhill bike that I can pedal the top of the mountain. And most of the time for the riding I'm gonna be doing in Squamish, I'm gonna be pedaling on a fire road where typically you'll be shuttling your downhill bike with your truck. So I'll be using the turbo mode for that. And I find the power is still actually quite manageable. You can obviously tune the different modes. The app is really well done. It's very easy, so you can have modes set up so you can, or I guess so your friends can keep up with you, because most likely you're gonna be the fastest rider in your friend group. But for example, if one of your friends got a TQ motor like this one that's got 350 watts, you'll be able to put it in eco mode and match the power so you play on even field. The bike's been so far incredible to ride uphill, but for me the big thing with any bike is how they perform downhill. So let's look at that. As pretty much all my bikes except the Eugene, I've opted for a mullet setup. Once again, I want the bike to perform as best as possible in the steep and gnarly downhill, so having the small rear wheel on the back allows me to squat deeper, to be more aggressive on the bike, and overall have a bike that's gonna be more capable and that's gonna forgive a little bit more mistakes. The trail option comes either as a mullet or a 29er, and the enduro version only comes in mullet anyway, but there's a few things you can change. The dropout on the bike now can be changed so you can make the bike longer or shorter, or I guess the chainstay can become longer or shorter. Myself, I've opted for the longer version, so 452 millimeters, and the shorter version is 447 millimeters, which is still fairly long, but because I've got a small wheel on the back, I feel like I can get away with the longer chainstay, and mostly because I wanted this bike to basically ride like a downhill bike. I want it to be as capable as possible, and I find that longer chainstay are gonna bring me more stability and more confidence at high speed. Now, if we look at the front of the bike, there's one thing that I changed that doesn't come stock, is the headset. I, just like on the Shresh SL, I have wanted to make the bike a little bit longer. I looked at the reach on paper, which is 450 millimeters, and my ideal reach is 455. This is really personal, but I like to run typically a longer bike. So straight away, I put a reach adjuster from Works Components that allowed me to make the bike slightly longer. But by doing that, that also raised the front end by 10 millimeters because you need space in order to put the bearing in the cup. So essentially that raised the front of my bike by an extra 10 mil. So even though the fork is 170 mil, the geometry of my bike is like if I was to run a 180 millimeter fork. That makes the bike quite slack. And to be honest, I was quite skeptical. Maybe it's going to be too slack, maybe it's going to be too difficult to put the weight on the front wheel and the bike's gonna struggle to corner. But actually I was really surprised. The bike's been riding absolutely unreal so far. Propain's done a really good job with integrating the motor properly into the frame. The cable routing is really dialed. It goes all the way along the linkage inside the frame, obviously, and you've got options. If you want to go through the headset, you can go through the side like I did, and that's mostly because I use the Works Component headset. You've got obviously a mount for your water bottle, so I've got the feedlock on, but you can also put the tools right down below. As we saw, you can change the dropout, make them longer if you wish, and they've also improved the depth of the seat tube in case you're short like myself and you want to run a bigger seat post. There's no issue with that. Now let's look at the actual components I've used in order to make this bike ride as good as it does. This video is brought to you by Jenson USA. Jenson is an online shop that sells worldwide most mountain biking products I use. They have been a great support of this YouTube channel for the past few years, and you can find on their website one-up components, air gun, galfer, feedlock, even my tools from Topic or my tires from Maxxis, useway packs, Met and Bluegrass. Pretty much every mountain biking product you need, they have it. So make sure you visit them by using the link in the description. When you use that link, that supports the channel and the videos. Now let's keep on riding. For the fork, I've got a RockShox Zeb 170mm of travel with a Vorsprung Smash Pot coil upgrade. Essentially, when you get an air fork, most of the friction actually comes from the air spring. So we remove that, put a coil instead to get a fork that's gonna be more sensitive, more plush, more comfortable, basically so I get less hand pump and I can ride some more. Now it's been interesting playing with the different spring, but also how much oil I put and what type of oil in order to get the fork to ramp up sooner or later. Now let's take a look at the chainring, another really cool upgrade I did on this bike and I'm really stoked on it. This is a Rimpact chain damper. I've been using that on every other bike. Essentially what it does is that it limits the effect of the chain on the riding on the suspension. When you ride and you take bumps, your chain goes up and down, and essentially what this device does is that it cancels it to make the bike feel more comfortable. You get less feedback and less fatigue on your feet and overall less vibration. What I've noticed the most is that the bike becomes less physical in the long descent and my vision is improved because I basically get less feeling from the ground and so I can see a little bit better. And yeah, I'm really stoked to have this on the e-bike. Okay, let's take a look at the rest of the equipment I got. For wheels, I've got the brand new Noble Ethos HD. HD for heavy duty. Those are the strongest wheels Noble make. For an e-bike like this, you want to run strong and reliable stuff, but those wheels are also quite compliant. Noble worked on the profile, so they're a bit shallower. They're gonna give you more grip, they're gonna forgive more while still being extremely strong. And they are built on the Project 321 G3 hubs. Those hubs are bulletproof. Quick engagement, they've got a bunch of really cool designs, the 6 locks that allows you to run a center lock disc or a 6-bolt disc. They've got the impulse system, basically no drag, and the quick engagement works really well with the Rimpact chain damper. So the delay when the hub actually engages is always the same. And what I would say is when you ride an e-bike, you just ride more. Especially an e-bike like this, you got so much more power. It can be really tough on components, especially the hub and the wheels. So picking up a hub and a wheel set is going to be really strong is absolutely key. Once again, if you want to save some money, make sure you use my code and check out the link down below. On Noble, you can save 10% with the code REMYNOBLE10. Project 321 if you just want the hub, the code REMY10. And also on Rimpact and Vospong suspension, there is some codes down below, so make sure you check them out. As always, I've got one-up components for my handlebars. This is the V2 version. Cut it at 740mm, 35mm rise, but I've actually done a couple of videos, one on bar length and one on bike setup, so make sure you check them out. Talking about setup, right now, as you can see, I've got about 20mm of spacer below the stem, and it feels really good, but as I play with the fork, if I end up running a softer front end, I might want to go to a 50mm rise bar like I did on the Shresh SL. So I'm gonna keep playing with that until I feel completely dialed, but so far it feels really good. 180mm V3 post for the seat, Ergon SM Enduro, and of course the Ergon GDH. Those are my all-time favorite grips. If we look at the brakes, I've got the Ace Dominion A4, and what's interesting is that I've got the Galfer Shark disc, but I stayed with 203mm. I didn't go to 220 like a lot of people, because I feel like those discs and those brakes and pads have been extremely powerful, and I don't really feel like I need more power than that, even though there is quite some way to slow down. If we look at the brake pads, I've been playing with the different compounds that Galfer offers. I really like the green pads. They're really powerful, they work really well when it's dusty, but they're not as good when it gets wet. And I like to find one pair of pads that works well for any condition, because the weather can change really quick in Squamish and I don't want to have to change the pads depending on that. So the red have been working really well for me, but I've also started to play with the purple, which are e-bike specific. I've got them on my downhill bike and so far they've been really good, so maybe I'll throw a pair on that. Another thing that I've done is I've got a little piece of tube in between the pads to make sure that there is no rattle at all, so the bike can be dead quiet. Okay, let's finish the build. I've got some Time Schisto pedal. Essentially, it's like a Special 10 but on steroids. For a big bike like this, that I'm gonna be using like a mini downhill bike, I want more support, more platform. So those are perfect. I've got the same on my Spin Drift and my downhill bike, the Rage. For the chain, I've got a KMC 12-speed SL chain, and those are really strong. I've never broken any so far. I know I've got pretty skinny legs, but now that I've got an extra 1300 watts of power, let's see if it passes the test. Transmission, I've got a Shimano XT mechanical shifter and rear there that I bought on Jenson USA. Jenson USA, by the way, is a partner of this channel. They've really helped me to make more and better video like this one. So if you want to support, make sure you check out the link to Jenson USA down below. Thanks so much for that. And I went for mechanical because it's cheap, it works well, it's reliable, and yeah, it's been awesome so far. I've got a Mudhugger Evo Long mud guard. Those are obviously really good for when it's wet, but also when it's dry, it protects your seal. It prevents sticks and stuff to be flying into your eyes. I've got a feedlock water bottle and topic valves. What else? Oh yeah, there's one thing that you probably cannot see. It's this thing. There's a ride wrap protection on this frame and it actually comes stuck with the bike. So Propain directly works with ride wrap to install the wrap at the key areas where there is a lot of potential damage, so top tube, chain stays, seat stays, etc. But if you want to purchase a tailored ride wrap kit for any mountain bike in the world, make sure you check out the link down below. Those things are awesome. It really protects your investment. When you go to sell the bike, still looks like new. When you travel, when you fall, it really does the job as advertised. And also, it makes cleaning your bike easier. When it's really muddy, you can just rinse it off and the ride wrap does a fantastic job. I think that's pretty much it. Have I forgotten anything? Well, you let me know in the comment below, but hopefully not. I think we should just keep on riding because I'm done talking. I prefer riding the bike than doing the YouTube videos, so yeah. Wow, not only is this bike pedals insane, it's super fun to ride down it, super capable. I think it's safe to say that New Bike Day was a success, absolutely blown away. Obviously the motor is super powerful and I had high expectations, but those expectations have been well surpassed. It's crazy, the torque and the speed you can get with that. But now if we look at the bike itself and how it rides down, I felt so incredibly comfortable. I hope you can tell from the images, but I felt pretty proud of my riding today. And yeah, I felt like really one with the bike. It's my first time riding an aluminum frame in quite some times, and I really like the response of the material. The geometry, the suspension, that rim pack is pretty cool. I really enjoy it. Wheels, tire, like I'm stoked with the combo. Actually bar height, really felt good today. Brakes super powerful. Yeah, I'm super stoked. Let me know in the comment below what you think. Is this too much power? Maybe not enough? And let's get that conversation going. I'll probably do a video, light e-bike versus full power e-bike. If you enjoy the content, make sure you subscribe, leave me a like and a comment. That helps a lot more than you think. And there might be some discount code, so check out down below. See you next week.